Welcome back. Welcome to another episode of Nain Shorts. Just have a quick conversation today about training as we always do. Nothing too big. One of our students recently was involved in the Vallejo Goodwill stick fighting tournament, and we believe they did very, very well. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about today is the idea of tournaments. Now, in the FMA world, you have various levels that you can go to. You have these local things. There's people who train for it specifically, and they go to the World Stick Fighting Tournament where they have the big old, I don't know what they're called. I guess it's armor, helmets, and they use live sticks. Also, not quite as heavy as rattan, but they still sticks. I've been involved in one of those, and you do end up with welts. So it's a lot of fun to be a part of. But what then are the benefits that come from doing something like a tournament? And for me, the idea of tournaments was introduced as a way of testing your shit out. It's like, hey, you play with your students, your fellow classmates, and you get a sense of rhythm. You get a sense of how they move, how you move, what you're trying to learn, and even your style of the martial art that you happen to be doing. It comes out so you know what to expect, and all of a sudden you get put in a situation in front of a total stranger where you don't know what they know, how well they know it, and you see if you can make your stuff work. And in that way, we do push our students to get involved with one or two tournaments, not a regular thing, but just enough so they can get a sense of understanding. This is how my stuff worked against this person. We may not have won the actual tournament itself, but I know I would have survived that fight. They got my thigh, I hit them in the head. They got the point because they made the first contact, but I took them out from the fight if this was a real sort of interaction, if there was actual sticks that we were swinging at each other. Because ultimately, what you take away from the tournament is going to depend on what it is that you're training. For us, we don't really train for tournaments. The one student that was able to go to this particular tournament last weekend, fortunately we had other students lined up, but things came up and they weren't able to attend. So otherwise we would have had quite a few. But at one point during one of her matches, she was struck hard enough where you could see it on camera that she felt it. It wasn't it wasn't fun. But she didn't stop. She kept going. She pushed through and she finished that particular match. Again, was the point to win? Was it to stick it out? No, it was just to get that feel and that sense of I'm being attacked by somebody. Somebody's really trying to make contact with me. Holy crap, that hurt. What do I do now? Well, you finish. And then when you are done, you can get off or go off the center of the ring and then cry because according to Rico, she she definitely felt that and was in a bit of pain. But it was such a proud moment to see her stick it out, to go through the process of finishing what she started, even though she was in more pain than she'd been in a while. It also happens that she's one of the hardest hitting students that we have, and she just kind of bulldozes through. Nati, love you. You did a great job. Awesome, awesome work. And the thing about it is that now she has a good sense of what that's like beyond the people that she normally plays with. And that's why we do it. On the other hand, there are schools that specifically focus on the idea of tournaments. They train for tournaments. And when that happens, the training switches a little bit. Just like when you train to be in a ring, there are certain things you just don't do because they're not useful in that setting. There are other things that you do work on. Physicality becomes a big part of it, being able to move in and out, having that agility, having that stamina and cardiovascular health to be able to go for many, many rounds. Those are the kind of things that then adapt to the way that people train. And depending on why you do it, those are the things that then come up. Do our students need all that? No, not necessarily. But if they ever wanted to, we do have other people that we know that could help them develop that aspect of the sport. Because now we're talking about practicing or training for a sport so you can compete, so you can hopefully win, so you can continue competing. And I know that not just in Filipino martial arts, but in so many other arts, they do have competition. And it's always a thing that's encouraged, but also not the most easy thing to do financially, especially for some other competitions like, you know, jiu-jitsu, for example. From what I understand, and I don't know much of it, just what I've heard from those that practice, those have been in tournaments, that sometimes you don't really make any money and you spend a good amount just to participate, and sometimes you're single elimination and you're done. You know, all that training, all that money that you put forward to get into the tournament, and all of a sudden, you know, you're out in your first bout. But what do you gain from it? What is overall learning process that you get? And there's a lot, depending on what mindset you go into, depending on what it is you're trying to accomplish. There's so much that can be learned from pitting your skills against somebody that you don't know, somebody that may be way better than you at it than you are. And all of a sudden, whatever you thought you were good at may not be any use to you in that ring. You may have to adapt, and it gives you a sense of direction of where to go. Keeping in mind, though, that you sort of have to be geared for that as well. I definitely believe that if you're going to go into some setting like that, that your instructor would have prepared you, at least mentally, for the possibility of losing, because it happens. Sometimes they're just better than you. Sometimes you can argue that maybe it was more of a preferential thing than it was anything else. Again, things that you experience, things that you see at tournaments. Is it true? Is it not? That's not the debate here. The only thing I'm pointing out is that as an instructor, I want to make sure that my students are prepared for whatever inevitability happens from these tournaments. One, to be very clear as to their expectation. Yes, definitely fun is one of those things that we want them, but we also want them to understand that they're possibly going to get hurt, and they're not going to be seriously injured, but it might be enough for some people to quit, especially if they're not conditioned to getting hit at all. If they've never been hit, if they don't know what it's like to be hit by somebody who's really swinging at them, in this particular instance, or who's really trying to pin them, who's really trying to choke them out, who's really trying to knock them out, or just cause enough pain where they quit or tap out completely. If they don't understand these things and they go into a tournament, that might be the last time that they ever participate, and might not even want to continue with the school itself, just because it's such a rude awakening to go from such a passive place where you feel safe, where you're learning, where you're not really getting any sort of injuries, and then all of a sudden you feel this intense amount of pain that you didn't expect, and it completely switches the way that you view what it is that you're practicing, what it is that you're training. So there's definitely things that need to be prepared mentally for anyone who wants to participate, because it's not just for the younger students, also for adults. There are adult leagues, there are moments like that, and we have to keep in mind that as much fun as they are, that our emotions will get involved. We could lose our temper a little bit and go beyond where we need to, and we might be put into our place by somebody who is literally better than us. So all these things, and keep in mind, folks, I'm only speaking from the experiences that I've had and what I've seen in person, and watching other people participate in the few tournaments that I have been involved in. So what's the takeaway? Tournaments good? Are they bad? They can be. They can be, depending on what it is that you want to accomplish and where you want to go with your school. Is it for everybody? No, not at all. It definitely isn't for everybody, whether it's financially or just because it's not going to be as beneficial to you as it would be for somebody else. And then there are those who want to be in a circuit, who want to win championships, who want to then elevate to some higher stage where it becomes more of a professional thing. definitely something that has to then be a part of your training in order to achieve those goals. But if you just want the experience every once in a while, I definitely recommend test your skills against somebody you don't know in a safe environment, as safe as you can be, because the only other way would be to get into an actual fight and then find out if your stuff works, which we don't want our students to go through, but we also want them to pressure test their own knowledge and abilities to see if they can hold up to so many unknowns, still within a safe environment, of course. But what do you think? What do you think about tournaments? Are they good? Are they bad? How do you go about then getting your students prepared for something if your overall goal isn't to be a tournament fighting system, but rather part of your actual curriculum and personal growth for each individual student? So just something to consider. Tournaments are great. I personally love them. I don't participate in all of them because, well, sometimes can't. But how do you go about doing that, and how does that relate to the way that you train and what it is you try to accomplish for your students or even your own personal training? Thank you for joining me on another one of Nain Shorts. Bit of a quick one, but we'll be back with more. And maybe Eric will stop being so shy and he'll join me on the next one. But till then, 3, 2, 1, cut!